everyone. Welcome to the Thinning of the Veil podcast. I am your host, Tia Smith, and we are all in for a treat today. I'm so excited. I've been saving this special friend experience for Halloween in particular, just because I thought it was fitting. So, welcome, Rob Ferguson, to the podcast, and we're excited to have you. I would say about this Thinning of the Veil experience that it is hands down the most unique experience that I have ever heard. And I'm so glad that we randomly, which I don't think is randomly, happened to run into each other up at the YSA. And so I'm just going to actually tell how we first met. When I was in the YSA, I was in charge of Temple and Family History along with my husband. And in similar to Tara's experience, we tried to gather all of those people that were in charge of family history in the wards together. And Rob was put into a bishopric of the 29th ward and was put over family history. And Rob, I think at the time, if I knew how involved you were with family history, I would have been a lot more nervous teaching those classes, because usually the bishopric members that could get called into that generally don't know a whole lot about family history, but you were the exception to that rule. And luckily I didn't know on the front end of that, because I for sure would have been a lot more nervous about it. But Darren and I kind of would gather all of the committee members together of each ward. We would have lessons, we would have discussions, and just kind of getting the pulse, I think, of what was happening in each ward. And Rob, he was there almost every meeting. He hardly missed one. But I remember him coming up to me afterward and kind of started talking about things. I'm like, wait, this guy knows a lot more about family history than I initially thought. And I'm not quite sure. Do you remember like how we got onto the conversation about this particular experience?
I think you just shared some of your own personal experiences, and it seemed to, for whatever reason, it seemed to relate somewhat to my experience.
Okay. And I remember um you being a little, just a teensy bit nervous about sharing your experience with me. And it was
Kind, kind of,
quite, yes,
kind of like,
please.
kind of like today.
Yes, kind of like today.
Yeah.
Well, this is the funny thing is we've had so many conversations about letting go of the fear of what people might think of you. And I understand that wholeheartedly, because I had the same and maybe continue to do so to a certain extent, the fears about sharing these experiences. But I didn't realize the extent until you invited Darren and I over to the house with you and Jill, and kind of let us know the whole experience. And I was blown away. And I remember saying, you've got to testify of these things. If Heavenly Father and the Savior are urging you to testify, this is one story that needs to be told. Um, and so I feel like kind of after that, the floodgates opened maybe a little bit, and you got called on a mission. Unfortunately, you got called out of the bishopric because you were going on a mission to Nauvoo and to the temple there, and the rest is history. So maybe first introduce yourself, and then tell us a little bit how you got involved in the Gathering of Israel.
Um, Rob Ferguson. I'm retired. I'm 65. I live in Hyde Park, where you live,
Yeah.
Hyde Park, Utah, which is northern Utah. Um, I've been married for 44 years, met my wife at BYU after my mission, and we have 4 children and we have 10 grandchildren. And as you mentioned, we just recently returned from our mission to Nauvoo. We were there for 6 months, serving in the temple every day in Nauvoo, which was just awesome.
Yeah.
And then we recently received our call, actually about 10 days ago, called to the London temple for 12 months, where we'll go there the first week of February, and we'll serve for a year, and we'll be in the temple every day in the London temple. And we're
I'm
really excited about that.
so jealous. Honestly, we had this conversation a little bit before. That would be my go-to place where I'd want to go because everyone knows that I have, again, this fascination with England and even more so Scotland. And I just found out that you are also of Scottish descent. We probably feuded each other on the, the
Well, Ferguson, I think they pronounce it Ferguson or something like that. That's the Scottish way.
okay.
And I have done a lot of research in England. I've been to the parishes, the Mitchell Library.
Yeah.
I've gone in and gotten old books with the white gloves and looked through poor law records, and that's just been exciting. And I've got a lot of relatives in England, so we're also excited on my P day. I'll do some sleuthing in England for some of my relatives.
Well, and maybe eventually someday you and I will end up in Scotland Temple serving together when when eventually gets built.
Yes.
So that's really, really awesome. So tell me why in the world you would get involved in family history work? Like, and what age were you? Like, what was the impetus for you being involved in that?
Um, I think my first exposure to family history genealogy is when I was 13 or 14 years of age, living in Northern California. One summer day, on summer vacation, my mom asked me, "Hey, come with me, Rob, to the uh, stake center, and I want to work on some genealogy." And I reluctantly agreed to do that. And she had me fill out um, uh, family pedigree charts,
Yeah.
which I'd never even seen before, and she showed me how to do it. So I remember putting in Robert Ferguson, I put my birth date and I put some information in, and then I filled out my parents' information. And then I started to fill out information about my grandparents and great grandparents, and I didn't know them at all. Um, and my mom was providing me the information to write down, and they were on these legal size 3-part carbon copy because there wasn't any, this is 50 years ago. There weren't computers back then. And
Great.
the top was white, the middle was yellow, and the bottom was pink. They just went right through it. And I filled them out. And I remember as I was filling out, one of my great great grandparents, her actual name was Lily Mae Richmond. I remember that. And as I was filling this out, I had this spiritual experience. And I'd never had one before, never felt anything like that before. And it was very pronounced and right in my chest. And it was unique and powerful. And I remember stopping, wondering, what is this I'm feeling? If I could go back in time, I would have asked my mom, what was I feeling? Because I didn't have any idea.
Yeah.
And she would have probably said, I don't know this. She probably would have said, well, Rob, that's the Holy Ghost or the Spirit of Elijah or something
Yeah.
telling you that this is important, what we're doing here, something like that. But unfortunately, I never did that. Um, I fast forward to now I'm 40 years old. So this is 25 years later. I've done nothing to do with um, family history work. Just thought that was something that older people did, and I just didn't do it. And so I got transferred. My office got transferred to downtown Salt Lake, and my office was right across the street from Temple Square. So as soon as I got there, at lunch a couple of days, I walked around Temple Square, looked at the Christus statue and the displays, and I saw everything you can see in a couple of days. And then the next day, I went to the West Gates, and there's 2 buildings outside the West Gate. There's the Pioneer Museum, and back then, 25 years ago, it was a family history center. And I thought, oh, I wonder what's in there. So I walked in those doors, and I opened the doors and looked around, and there was a desk in the front lobby with a lady sitting there, and a senior missionary couple with name tags. And then there was a glass window behind them where I could see just rows and rows of books, just lots of books everywhere,
Yeah.
books, books, books.
Yeah.
And
It's
as I
kind of
walked,
cool.
it's really cool. And now, of
Yeah.
course, it's all computers now.
Yeah.
But when I was there, it was books. And as I walked in, I had this overwhelming spiritual experience that I felt in my chest, and it was unique and powerful. And
Yeah.
I've been on a mission. I'd done a lot of things in the church before, and I know what the spirit feels like. But this, for some reason, was uh, different. It was unique, a
Yeah.
different flavor, a different color of the spirit, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
note, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It was unique, and
Right.
I immediately recognized it as what I felt as a 14-year-old boy filling out pedigree charts with my family group sheets and pedigree with my mom. It was the same, and I never felt that particular feeling except at that time. And I immediately recognized it, which I think is interesting that I could think and recognize it from something from 25 years before, but I did. And it was
Yeah.
powerful. So I spent the next hour walking up and down the building. They have upstairs, they have all these microfilm metal things you pull out. There's microfilms in it. And I just went all around there, and the feeling never left me. And so I thought, I thought the next day at lunch, I'm going to do that again. So I went back again, and sure enough, the same thing happened.
Same thing.
Well, I actually, because of that, spent the next 2 or 3 years, as much as I could, maybe 5 or 10 hours a week at that family history center during lunch or after work.
Wow.
I'm not saying I felt the spirit every time, but I did on occasion.
Yeah.
And I guess I caught the family history bug. I became very involved
Yeah.
and learned a lot about family history, genealogy. I had a cousin I ran into, and then I worked with my sister Diane in California. I would find records, and then we would jointly do the temple work for these people as I entered them into family search and did a lot of. So that's the temple work. That's where I kind of got my start from that experience.
I think it's so cool that it wasn't necessarily the work that enticed you to go back, because filling out pedigree charts can actually just be so cumbersome, but that there was the spirit of Elijah, right, that permeated every time, and that your spirit could bring that to your remembrance, and that familiarity that you have with not only the spirit, but, this work of the gathering of Israel. I have always said it has a certain revelatory feel to it that you cannot experience otherwise. Like, if you're not involved in the gathering, you just won't be able to have this particular kind. And for lack of a better word, I think it's the spirit of Elijah. And it becomes this impetus for you to put in the sacrificial work that it requires, and it feeds off of itself, and it becomes an addiction. It's a good addiction.
Yes.
Most of the time. But it's just one of those things that has astounded me every single time, because once I feel like maybe I'm done, I'm never done, because that feeling keeps coming back, and I'm like, okay, there's more people that I've got to find, and there's more things that I've got to do. And it's just this beautiful, I think, gift from our Heavenly Father that allows us to feel in a certain way his feelings towards his children. And I think that's what's so special about it, is that spirit of Elijah helps you to feel the love that Heavenly Father and the Savior have for your ancestors in particular, pertaining to you, and just opens your heart up to this work. And it's just, I've always said, like, to anyone that's in that calling, right, the family history calling, if you can invite the spirit of Elijah, it will do the heavy lifting every single time. Because once people feel that spirit, it's a done deal. So as you were going through the family history library and doing all this work, and you just get set on this family history path. You said you were having some experiences and some unique revelatory experiences that kept bringing you back. The particular experience that we are going to be talking about today, what was the preface for that happening? What was happening in your life at the time that was, I guess, introducing or going to introduce this very, very unique thinning of the veil experience?
So I think I mentioned this. I'd done quite a bit of work for about 2 or 3 years, and in that process, it's just different back then. There was microfilm and
Yeah.
books. It wasn't like it is now. You can't just index and look on Ancestry or
Thank
find my
goodness.
past or my heritage or whatever.
Yeah.
It just isn't like that anymore. And so
Right.
I'm going, and I got these microfilm, and I'm rolling through you have all these readers up there. It's just old school stuff. And but in that process, I did have a lot of individual experiences where I felt like I had some help finding certain records. And when I did that, I entered those in and I did the temp work for them. And again, my sister helped me do that. And that kind of kept me going for maybe a year and a half, because I had
Mhm.
quite a bit of success.
Right.
And then at some point with the old records, I kind of ran out of good census records and birth, you kind of go through all of them at some point because you're
Yeah.
looking at different areas at least I was in certain lines. And I was focusing on the Fergusons in Scotland and that particular area. And I wanted to go further back and I was just not having success getting any further back. And I got frustrated with my lack of success. And I can
Yeah.
remember one night being at the Family History Center, and I'd been there for a couple hours, and I'd already spent about 2 months looking through some of these different particular lines, and I just couldn't find nothing. I
Yeah.
guess I'd got all the low-hanging fruit was gone. And so I remember sitting there, I went through a roll that I thought might be helpful, of course, nothing. And I got mad, maybe
Yeah.
upset,
Frustrated. Yeah.
frustrated is probably a
It
better word.
happens.
Yeah.
It happens in family history. It happens
I
quite a
got
bit.
frustrated and I felt dark inside. I really did not feel good
Yeah.
about it. And so I said, this is dumb. This is a waste. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just a waste of time. So I got in the car, came home, and my wife was night. My wife met me at the door, and she could tell I was upset. And she goes, "You okay?" And I said, "Yeah." I says, I'm just not doing genealogy anymore. It's a waste of time. I need to be spending more time with my family, not with dead family that I can't find and I can't find them anyway, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to do it anymore. And then she said, okay, I can see you're upset. Here's what let's do. Why don't you just give it a rest for a couple months and then look at it again fresh in a couple months? And I remember going, maybe. And then I just went and sat in the couch in my unhappy state.
Well,
And
and
that,
let me just say real quick before you get into it that there I re there is a pattern that we get to in these experiences that sometimes we experience huge opposition right before we have those really powerful thinning of the veil experiences.
and I
So
felt that very
exactly.
distinctly
Yeah.
dark inside. I felt
Yes.
terrible.
Yeah.
It's really hard to describe how I don't feel like that. I'm a very up, it was not like that.
Yeah.
I agree with what you just said. That's
Yeah.
exactly what happened.
But if you're having that, just recognize that that is coming before some really cool experience that's happening or some really revelatory experience or something, because Satan clearly doesn't want you to continue doing this work. And just like patterned in the scriptures with Joseph Smith, there was always this the dark opposition before these revelatory lights that came.
Yes. In fact,
Yeah.
it's interesting as I think about it. I felt so bad. I even called my dad up, and he lives in California, in Fresno, with my sister. And it was like 8:30 at night. And I don't call him that late because he was old. He didn't go to bed
Yeah.
really early. But he had just walked in from the temple, actually, doing some temple work with my sister. And I actually felt a little better after talking to him for a few minutes.
That's
Didn't feel
awesome.
quite as dark.
Yeah. Well, and it's always helpful to, I think, share and be honest where we're at with these experiences, because I feel like we can lift others in those times of opposition in their lives for sure. And hopefully this podcast is one of those enlightening times to help lift others through your testimony of what happens, because what I like to do is share you everyone's different thinning of the veil experiences so that they can get an idea of what it could look like in their life. Now, to be fair, I have never heard of an experience like this particular one that you're going to share, but that it does exist is completely evident because it happened to you. And it's so powerful. So tell us a little bit about, so you were struggling, you had finally just decided, I'm not going to work on family history work anymore. And those out there who have like walked away frustrated, your wife gave such good advice in saying, okay, put it down for a second and then come back to it. Right.
Yes.
So that was the preface. So what, just, I guess, tell us about the really cool, unique experience that you had.
So now it's about 10 o'clock. Everybody's gone to bed. Jill had gone to sleep. She's gone to bed. And I went into my bathroom, into my closet. and I said my prayers. I don't remember anything special I said,
Yeah.
but as I got up, I had this unique, again, different, unique spiritual feeling that totally enveloped me. Different though. It came up, it started at my knees and went up my body, up my arms, up into my head. And uh, it was more electric. And I've never felt anything like that. And
Yeah.
actually, I've never felt anything like that since. It was like a one-time deal. And but it was I was like, what is going on? And I got up and I remember it was so sensitive, I could barely touch my face, and the top of my head was the most sensitive. And I remember looking in the mirror, going, what is going on? And I did that for like 5 minutes and it just wouldn't go away. It was powerful. And I remember thinking, am I getting sick? It was like the goosebumps,
Yeah.
hair standing on end, electric thing.
Yeah.
And I I don't know. It just, but I didn't feel sick. And so I went to bed
Yeah.
and I laid in bed and it still kept going on for like 5 minutes. And as I laid there, um, I heard in my mind, um, I heard two words. Um, I heard, I tried. I tried. I kept hearing it. It was going over and over again. I tried. And, and then I heard some more words. I tried to live a good life. I tried to do what's right. And I heard that and it kept repeating because it was really hard to understand when I first heard the words. It's like they were rolling or floating in my mind. And I wasn't hearing it with my ears. I was hearing it with my mind. And I've never experienced anything like that before.
Yeah.
Hearing these words, I tried to live a good life. I tried to do what's right. I taught my children values to stand for truth and light. I searched the world for all my life and waited patiently to find the gospel blessings meant to be. And I heard that. Now I summarized it. What I would hear it, and then more words would come. Then I would hear that, and it kept repeating. I guess so I would get it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I hearing? Because I'm just hearing differently than we're hearing right now. It's just
Right.
different.
Yeah.
And what does this mean? And the spiritual feeling I have was just it was just so strong, especially on my head.
Yeah.
And then I heard more words came to my mind. I I witnessed the restoration, the Father and the Son. I watched dear brother Joseph kneel down upon the ground. The gospel sent to all the world in its entirety, blessings sent to others, but not me.
Mm.
So here I wait, there's more words that came, and watch and pray. My temple work will be done someday. It's up to you, my child. So please recall your family chain extends beyond these walls. I wait, I wait, I wait. I can remember when I heard your family chain extends beyond these walls. I remember going, what does that mean? What walls?
Yeah.
And then I could feel like, okay, someone is talking to me. I never felt like anybody was right there next to me. It
Yeah.
more felt like someone from a long ways away was talking to me to my mind.
Yes. Yeah.
And uh,
Yep.
I was like, what is going on? And so I didn't know what to do, what to think about it. So I turned on my bedside light. Jill's still asleep. And I had a drawer there and I had a pad of paper. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I should like write this down. That's a good thought.
100%.
Hey, maybe I should write this down. And so I took out a pad of paper, which I had in there, and a pen or pencil, whatever. And I started to write out, I tried to live a good life. I tried to do what's right. And I started writing this out. And I
Yeah.
got about the first part done. And um, I looked at my handwriting and it was just horrible. I was writing in cursive. It was horrible. I can't even read my own writing. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to read this. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go downstairs and type it up. Then I
Okay.
can read it. I
That's
went
awesome.
downstairs, booted up the computer down in my basement, typed it up. And I thought
Yeah.
that was it.
Right.
Here I wait and watch and pray. My temple work will be done someday. It's up to you, my child. So please recall your family chain extends beyond these walls. I wait, I wait, I wait. I thought that was it,
Right.
but that wasn't it. And then more words started to come. And except this time they weren't repeating. I was getting a little bit repeat. I think I was more locked in or whatever,
Yes.
more
100%.
aligned, so to
Yeah.
speak. I was
Yeah.
getting it, what was happening. It didn't happen that way at first, but I did. And so what happened with the next part, I would hear a line or a part of a line, and then I would type it up. And then when I was done typing it, I would hear another line, and then I would type it up. And that's the way this next part came. And so I want to make sure I don't mess the words up. And so here's what I heard next.
Okay.
I know that you are busy. You've got so much to do. It's tough to raise a family. I know. I tried it just like you. So much to do, so many cares. I pray that you will see you must never forget your heavenly family. I've watched your mortal sojourn. I've observed you from above. I saw you grasp the gospel, have blessings which you love. Blessings from on high, I know you have received. Those same blessings I know are also meant for me.
Yeah.
And I remember when I heard the words, I watched your mortal sojourn, I've observed you from above, I saw you grasp the gospel. That hit me because I was thinking, wait a minute, is someone watching? I stopped and looked around and went, is someone, it kind of freaked me out.
Yeah.
Like, is someone, who is watching me? What am I hearing? What is going on? I was just kind of like blown away. I just couldn't believe it.
A
And
lot to take in.
yeah. And I'm starting to, before I was just hearing the words, now I'm hearing it and I'm hearing it more clearly. It's coming quicker. And I'm also starting to understand what this person is saying to me.
Yeah.
And at some level, I can also now feel the emotions
Yes.
of the person who is communicating with me.
Right.
I feel the unfairness that this person didn't get the gospel,
Right.
the almost the unfairness that you've got the gospel, your family, but I don't. I could feel the when she says, when this person says, so here I wait and watch and pray. I could feel the passion of waiting,
Yeah.
watching and praying, and a little bit of the confidence when that maybe I can help this person. It was just
Hmm.
weird. To feel this, have the Spirit come on you and to understand it, and then feel the emotions and hear these words in my mind. I'm just like, wow.
Well,
It was like a
and
sensory overload.
exactly. And I think for this particular experience, and as you keep sharing it, the when you have a revelatory experience that includes at least one, but if not more of your own senses, where you can feel, but you can also hear, sometimes you can see, that experience becomes so much more understandable because it's not just words being told to you, you're actually feeling it, right? And I think with
Yes.
family history, these thinning of the veil experiences become a more complete set of revelation because it includes more than just one sense, right? And you can
Yes.
understand it more. It's
Yes.
just an amazing thing because when I've had those, especially those feelings of knowing what they are um, feeling. Oh my goodness, like you don't want to waste time and try not to help them because you suddenly don't just logically know, you feel. And
Yeah.
that makes all the difference.
And
So,
I think this was from a sensory part.
yeah.
It came in degrees, in parts. I'm
Hmm.
first hearing it, I'm understanding it, I'm feeling the senses,
Yeah.
and then the last part came, the final part. And uh, this came a little differently.
Okay.
It came faster. I guess I was tuned into the frequency, or I was
Exactly.
aligned. It came fast.
Yeah.
And um and as I heard the words, I would type them. And I'm a pretty fast typer, but they were coming fast.
Yes.
So fast that in some ways I couldn't keep up with as they were coming to me. It was like I was taking dictation at this part. It was anyway, I was typing fast, and there was 3 lines in my last part that I got that the last word I didn't get a chance to put in. I would hear the sentence. I'm typing as fast as I can. There's still a word to be typed, and then the next line's coming. So I just left that word because I didn't want to lose the next line.
Right.
And then the
Right.
next morning I got up, there was 3 lines that had 3 words that I didn't have a chance to plug them in, and I plugged them in the next morning. I could still hear it. But as
Awesome.
I heard the last part, I noticed at some point that the words seemed to be rhyming. I'm like, hey, these words are rhyming. And then I could start to feel a little bit of a beat or a rhythm to it. You know what I mean? So
Yes,
and I
totally.
wait and watch, and then I'm like, wait a minute. And then at some point, as I heard the last part, it really kind of uh, changed from words I was hearing to singing I was hearing. So
It's
it's just
amazing.
what it is. So I'll
So
just tell you the
wait,
last part.
so
Ah,
before as you explain this, I'm going to
yes.
put this up because you tell
Well,
us.
hold that for a minute till I do
Okay.
the last part.
Okay.
And then we can come to that, I think.
Okay.
The last part I heard was, um, I pray that you'll do research and find my birth and death.
Mm,
They're recorded in life's records. You just have to hunt a bit. My death, my birth, my marriage date are all right there. You'll see. Submit my work and seal eternity.
mm,
I've now been taught the gospel. I know that it is true. I've taught my family and my friends, and now we wait for you. You're just the one to do the work as we wait patiently. Find us and turn the children's hearts to me. And
mm.
then the last part changed from singular, like to a more plural.
Yeah.
So here we wait and watch and pray. Our temple work will be done someday. It's up to you, my child. So please recall your family chain extends beyond these walls. We wait, we wait, we wait. And
Mm.
you can maybe
I'm
you
gonna
can,
sh you want me to share it now?
well, I don't know. Let me say one more thing before,
Okay.
because it was really interesting at the very end. And by the way, as I heard that last part, I'm just emotionally overcome
Oh, I'm sure.
because I'm understanding it.
Right.
What this person wants me to find their temple records, do their temple work. I get that now. And somebody's talking to me, I can hear it. And the way I was hearing and the feeling I was feeling, and then I could hear music. And then I actually started to cry,
Yeah.
and which it's just what I did. I don't cry that much, but I was crying here. And try to type when you're crying and you're hearing all this stuff, this sensory overload. It was amazing. And when I heard the last words, we wait, we wait, we wait, it was like someone turned the power switch off. It
Yeah.
was abrupt. The
Yes.
spiritual feeling I had completely stopped. The
Yes.
words stopped, like somebody just shut a door. It stopped. And I sat there. The only light was like the light from the computer that was still on. And I sat there going, what just happened? And it was very draining to
Mm,
me
mm.
physically. So I just didn't know what to do. So I sat there and I was just like, oh my gosh. And so I just was wasted. So I went upstairs and I went to sleep. Like I just fell right asleep.
Yeah.
The next morning, I got up and printed out my 1 page thing I typed up and typed in the names of the last few words that I could. It was so fast. I typed those few
Sure.
words in,
Yeah.
and then, but I could still hear it. I could hear
Echoing.
the music. I could hear the words in my mind,
Yeah.
but not my ears.
I know.
And it was,
Yeah.
you have self-talk. At least I do. You lay in bed at night and you think, okay, I've got to go make sure I go to the bank and I got to send that email and go pick up a
Mm-hmm.
prescription or whatever. You know, that's your mind talking to yourself. This was not like that.
Right.
I was hearing somebody else talking in my mind, and it was really weird. And
Well,
so,
Rob, but
yes,
that's the pattern, right? The Lord can speak to you in a lot of different ways, but I think we don't talk about this revelatory way very much, and we need to do it more often, because when we're hearing the voice of the Lord, most of the time when we're talking about hearing, we're hearing through words coming to our minds. It's not an actual audible sound,
yes,
right?
yes,
So revelation, if it is not only coming from your ancestors from above, then 100% the Lord can speak revelatory experiences through words. And all you need to do is be willing to quote unquote hear them, record them, and then the Lord will give you more. And you know when it's done because the words stop, right?
exactly.
And that's
And the
how
spiritual feeling stopped.
exactly.
Everything shut.
Everything just shuts down.
The power switch gets
Yeah.
flipped.
Yeah. And you do get exhausted, but
Yeah,
that's also a pattern in the scriptures. You know, when Joseph Smith was having those early revelatory experiences, he would have to like take a minute afterward to just recover from it, because we're not used to being at that high level of interactions with, the other side.
yeah.
So I think it's
So,
glorious, actually.
so I got up that morning, and I could hear the music in my mind. And I'm not musical, as you know. I don't play any instruments. I don't know anything about music. I can't read music. I'm just not musical. And so, but we have a piano because my wife's musical,
Yeah.
and Jill had been teaching my son Brad how to play the piano, and she had this template that went over the keys of our piano that would be like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever the letters are, whatever the notes are, so
Okay.
you can know which one was C.
Right.
And so I got up and I could hear it, and I took out my paper that I printed, and I started to pick out the notes I heard. I tried to live a good, I mean, I could hear it. I tried to do
That's
what's right.
so good.
And I could hear it. And so I found those notes on the piano, and then
Yeah.
above the word, I put in the corresponding note
Note.
letter, whatever you
The
want to call it.
letter.
That, and maybe you could show that. And that's what
Yeah,
I'm
I'm going to
talking
show
about.
it. Okay. Let's just
And
see. Um, okay.
so this paper, which is really amazing that I still have this, um, I had this was 22 years ago, and we had some computers that my son had saved the hard drive from that long ago and was able to print this out. I can't believe we had this, but I typed up the words, and then above it, I plugged in the G, C, 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 D, whatever those notes are that corresponds to the musical note, and I plugged them in. And I was plugging those in. My wife got up, and I'm on the piano, and I got my paper. I only had a few notes putting in there in pencil, of course. I went back later on and typed in the words because I just had pencils when I did with pencil or
Right.
pen. But before she goes, "What are you doing?" I said, Nothing," because I didn't know what to I didn't
Nothing.
know what to say because it was
I
still
just
kind
do.
of so weird, and I didn't know what to even say to her. And I said I didn't want to talk about it either. And so she went and started making breakfast, and I've spent the next 10 minutes, and I'm plugging it out. She comes back in about 10 minutes later, and she goes, "No, really, Rob, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I had this thing happen last night. You're not going to believe it. So I told her what had happened. And as I was telling her this stuff, I kept saying, she said this, and she said this, and she said that. And so my wife said, so the person that was talking to you was a woman, a female. And I paused for a minute because I didn't realize until that time that it was a female voice, because you would think, okay, that's obviously going to be a female voice, but not the way I was hearing it. I wasn't hearing it with my ears, so it,
Yeah.
it was different. And so, but after I said that, I said, wait a minute. I thought about it. I said, yeah, actually, yeah, it was a female voice, which I thought was kind of interesting. You know what I mean? That I didn't know that till
Well, the
then.
revelatory experience continued, right? As you're learning, now you're typing the song in.
Yeah, and I'm
The
hearing
Lord,
it.
exactly.
Hearing
And
the
the
whole,
Lord
yeah,
is revealing more to you that in the time you were just focused on getting the words down.
yeah,
But that's the graciousness of the Lord, that in this whole revelatory process, he gives you the words, and then he gives you the tune, and then he gives you the corresponding keys. Then he gives you the who is speaking to you, or I guess that she's a female,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome that even in like the initial revelatory experience, we need to be aware that the Lord can reveal more about that revelatory experience as we go and as we ponder on it.
Yes. So I finished putting those notes in, and I just kind of kept to myself. I didn't want to tell anybody,
Yeah.
just because I just didn't want to tell anybody. I think they would think that was too out there. And so, um, but I did feel the desires of this person to find their work. The
Yeah.
problem was there's nothing in this song that says who this person is.
Right.
I mean, I thought to myself, what, instead of having this whole thing with this music thing and the whole thing,
Yeah.
just say my name is Tia Smith and was born in London in 1840 and I died in 1864, and go find my records. And you know what? I'm a pretty good researcher. I've been doing
You
it
would
for
have
a
found it.
lot of years. I would have found
Yeah.
it. And you know what I would have done? I would have done her temple work. But
Right.
that's not what happened. So that was a little frustrating. Go back and look through your family trees and you'll see thousands of potential lines and people to work on.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who it is, it can become frustrating. So I
Right.
started my search. I started, by the way, and I've been searching for 22 years, have not found this person, I don't think. But I started my search to find this, and I didn't want to tell anybody about it. But I did tell the bishop. I was in a bishopric. I was the executive secretary to a bishop. And I told him, and he told his wife, who's the choir director, musical like my wife. And she came to me one day and she says, "Wow, I just learned about this. This is kind of amazing." I said, "Yeah, I didn't want to talk about it."
I don't
So
want to talk about
she
it.
says, uh, "You ought to make that into a music piece or something." And I said, "Well, how would you do that?" She goes, "Well, you already have the words and really you have the melody because you put those letter note things on top."
Yeah.
And I know a lady I was in Kaysville, Utah, and because I got a lady that could take that and she can do an arrangement and make a music piece out of it. And I said, "Oh, okay, that'd be cool." So she did, and she gave it to me. I made 20 copies,
Hmm.
and I didn't want to show those to anybody, but I did, unless it was somebody that I really trusted, knew me, so they
Yeah.
wouldn't think I was too
Cuckoo.
cuckoo or weird or something. And so
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to say that, too unusual experience. And
Right.
so I gave them to my sibling. I have we're seven kids in our family, and my parents, I think my in-laws, I gave a couple to my people on my ward, a couple neighbors, and a couple of people at work. And that's it. I only made 20 copies. And I told them, do not tell anybody about this. It's just for you. Do not make copies of this music. This is just for you. And I assumed that was the end of from a music standpoint. I sent one to my sister, Diane, because she's the one I've been doing a lot of research and temple work with. She lives in Fresno. Well, she called me one day and said, "You know, Rob, I know I wasn't supposed to share this with anybody, but I did. I've been doing a lot of that temple work in Fresno, and I've got really close to one of the member of the temple president. He's a sealer. His name is President Thomas. And I told him about it, and he wants to call you and talk about it." And I went, "Oh my gosh." So he called me. He was a really nice man.
Yeah.
He was a counselor, and he would ask me stuff like, "Rob, I'm a music person and I'm a temple person. And so, first of all, why did you use these words in this play?" And I said, "I don't know why. I didn't write it. I wrote it down. It's just what came to me."
Yeah.
"Oh, okay." We talked about some of the different words. Then he said, "Why'd you use these musical notes?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm not musical. I wrote it down." That's what it was. We
I'm
talked about
just
it.
dictating.
I'm just dictating what happened. And he goes, "Well, this is amazing. Do you care if I would to tell a few people about this?" And I said, "He's in California. I'll never see him again." I said, "That's fine." And that's the last conversation I had with President Thomas in the Fresno Temple. And that's where I've left it. Over the 20 years since then, I've shared this with maybe three different smaller groups that I felt like it was okay to share it with. I felt
Sure.
comfortable with. One of them was our YSA kids. And I was okay with that because a lot of them were in my ward and I knew them for year or two and I was close to
Yeah.
them. And I thought, okay, I'll share this. But that's really all I've talked to. The music has been in my drawer for 20 years. And I thought it's just for me to find this person because, and by the way, I've had success finding people. I have found over the 20 years, I'll bet I found over 200 relatives of mine as I've searched for this particular one. And I always thought when I find this one, she's going to come to me and say, "Yes, you did it. It's me." But I don't know if she'd give
High
me a high five,
five.
but she would do something in my head or something, slap me. But it hasn't happened. And maybe I found her and she just didn't tell me yet. But
Yeah.
because of that, and I've thought, well, maybe that's why I had this experience. Maybe if I would have just had the name, I would have just found the one person. That's it. But because of that, I found 200 relatives and I've done the work for them.
Yes.
And maybe that's why. And maybe it's a song because it'll remind me to keep doing it. That's what I always thought. And it was for me only. You're just the one. I've watched you. And that's why I shouldn't share this with anybody because it's just an experience for me to find this lady or family. That's what
So,
I thought.
and here we sit. That's what you get for thinking, because
Then I
when
went to
I
Nauvoo.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing though, is when we were in the YSA before you went to Nauvoo, we had this conversation and I was blown away because it validated some of my experiences, right? Because when you're sitting and having these experiences, you're like, "Oh my gosh, like what are people going to think about me?" You know 100% it's not you though, and you know what's happening. It's very, very clear. It's a powerful faith promoting experience for yourself. But what I started realizing, and this is the conversation we had that day in your house, is that there is power in the testimony of other people testifying about the gathering of Israel and the thinning of the veil, because it gives, I guess, that much more courage for people to have pray for eyes to see those thinning of the veil experiences that they're having in their lives. And I remember just saying to you, Rob, you've got to share this. This is amazing. And
What was my response? I'm trying to remember.
no, I don't want to. And
Yeah.
I was like, no.
And I
I
was
was a
pretty convinced I wasn't going to do that.
yeah, but I'm also pretty bullheaded. We're
Yeah.
both bullheaded, so this was quite an interesting
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
But I remember you shared it with your YSA and I thought, okay. And the power that had that I heard personally from the YSA kids after you shared that experience, because it was just this cool. We had your daughter come in and
You
sing it, and I
sang the song. Yeah.
yes.
Yep.
And it was so, so, so powerful for those. So fast forward, you've shared it now a little bit more, right?
Well,
Then you go
because
to
of,
Nauvoo.
yeah, and that's part
So
B of our,
now there the cool thing is there is a rest of the story, right? To
yeah.
this. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, um, we got called to Nauvoo to be temple missionaries, which is basically and Nauvoo is a busy place in the summer. They call 37 couples there. 30 of them are there for 6 months and seven are there for a year. And they do this 6 month because that's when all the people come during the summer. There's pageants that are there, reenactment, pioneer
Yeah.
stuff. And people want to go to the temple there, the Nauvoo
It's really
temple.
cool.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot, and they don't have a lot of local workers there, so they have to bring them in. So we got called there, and we're in the temple Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday for 7 hours, and we just do different temple assignments. So we got there the first 6 months. My wife and I already been ordinance workers, but they're still training. Every temple's different and how they
Yeah.
flow and how they do things. And so we had to learn how you do it the Nauvoo way, which is the right way for them. And we learned the processes. And then after about 6 weeks, you would go there and then you would get an assignment card. And that card would say, okay, here's what you can be doing for your 7 hours. They're in 1 hour blocks. In that temple, it's 1 hour block. And you might be 1 hour, you might be in the baptistry. An hour, you might be doing ceilings. An hour, you might be folding laundry, whatever. You're just whatever you need to do. They have an assignment there for every hour. And so we've been there about 6 weeks, and my wife got her assignment. And her assignment was one of her first ones was doing a ceiling assignment. And the way that works is you go to there's not patrons there yet. People aren't coming yet. So they're just ordinance workers there pretty much. And you go into the ceiling room and there's the sealer there. And you have to be 2 women and 2 men. And then you do proxy ceilings, which is what happened that
Yeah.
day. So she got there, she went in, Brother Johnson was the sealer. There was a lady there, Sister Dill was an elderly ordinance worker that was very quiet and doesn't say anything. And she's very, very sweet though. We'd never met her before.
Yeah.
And my wife was assigned with 2 brothers that were assigned. And then the Brother Johnson, the sealer said, we're going to wait a couple minutes until these 2 more brothers come.
Okay.
Everybody said, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Sister Dill, who doesn't say much, she's quiet, said, do you care if I say something before they come? And, oh, that's fine. Yeah. She goes, I just want to tell you how important I feel like these ordinances are and what they mean to me and why I'm an ordinance worker and an experience I had 20 years ago that I want to tell you about. And because it's my driving force. And he said, well, sure, Sister Dill, tell us the story. She says, well, 20 years ago, I was a new convert, a new ordinance worker, and I was working in the Fresno temple. And have been doing some sealings, and I got to know one of the members of the temple presidency really well. And his name was President Thomas. We became friends. And he told me of an experience that he just had. And he goes, I just had one of the sisters that comes here a lot and does a lot of the temple work. I've got to know her very well. And she told me about an experience that her brother had back east, which I guess Utah's back east, where he had an amazing experience where an ancestor of his came to him and talked to him in his mind, and it was a song, and told him how important it was that he find her and do the temple work for her. And he talked about it a lot, and the musicality too, because he's a musical guy. And she became very interested in it. Wow, what is this? And he says, let me show you. And so he actually gave her a copy of the music, and which anyway, he gave her a copy of the music. And I'm not going to talk about that, but that's what happened. And he went so far because she was so interested. He went and made a cassette recording of him playing the piano, singing the words of this music, and gave her the cassette.
Wow.
Well, she worked there for 5 years, and then she moved to Nauvoo. And has been there for about 15 years in Nauvoo. And then she's saying, she's saying in this meeting, I got this music. He told me about it, and it's been the driving force. It's helped me to cause me to be an ordinance worker for all these years and to do a lot of family history and temple work. And I know I have family members waiting for me to do temple work for them. That's been a driving force. And the last words of the song are, we wait, we wait, we wait. And I know I have family members waiting for me to do temple work. And my wife is listening to this, and she's just like, what is going on? She doesn't say anything because she says I was in a state of shock.
Right.
And so she goes, this can't be happening. And so, sorry, this mic. And so she finds me and says, Rob, you are not going to believe what just happened. I said, what? Well, first of all, she says, Rob, come over here. And I said, no, I got to go to my assignment. No, she goes, you get over here right now. So I came
You
over.
listen to me.
You listen to me. And so she's in a nice way because she's sweet. And
Right.
so in a sweet way. And so she said, she goes, there is a lady. I just got to a sealing session, and there's a lady in that sealing session, Sister Dill, who's an elder lady, and she has a copy of your song. I said, no, she doesn't. There's 20 copies. I know where all of them are. Well, she's got one, and she just told the experience, how she got it 20 years ago, and she's brought it to her to Fresno. She has a cassette recording from President Thomas recording this. And I'm like, what? And so I found the sealer, Brother Johnson, and we found out where she was. She was down in her next assignment, which was folding laundry. So we went down to folding laundry, and he introduced me. Hey, Sister Dill, this is Brother Ferguson. I want to introduce you to you. She goes, oh, hi, Brother Ferguson. And I said, can we talk to you for a minute? And she goes, yeah. Do you think she's in trouble? That's what she said. And so we went down, that's down in the basement, went by the baptistry to a confirmation room, and when she was there. And I said, Sister Dill, so can you tell me, you just told my wife was in the session with you. Did you tell me about you just told her about a musical experience you had, that you got this sheet music. Can you talk about it? And she said, yeah. So she just briefly told me about it. And I said, well, the reason I say that, because I'm the one that wrote that music. And she pauses, and she looks at me, and I had those white name badge with her name on it. She goes, Robert Ferguson, you, and she looks at me, you wrote that music? I said, yeah. And she starts crying.
Oh.
And she says, can I hug you? And I said, yeah. And she goes, I can't believe I'm hugging you. And so she gives me a big hug. Later on, a few days later, we were able to talk to her more. She brought the cassette tape, which we had a hard time playing. It was so old. But, and we talked about it for a while. And I remember thinking, how is it possible that I could have given that sheet music to my sister? She gave it to President Thomas. He gave it to this new ordinance worker. She kept it for 20 years, moved to Nauvoo. We got called to Nauvoo. There's 100 sister ordinance workers. And the one assignment that my wife has assigned to her is the time that she decides she's going to share that experience.
Well, it's astronomically
impossible.
exactly.
Not possible, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
because she's local and our temple presidency's local president church was a temple president, she told him about it. And then he talked to me and we talked about it. And right at the end of our mission, he decided we were going to have a fireside. And I shared that experience, my original experience. I shared the experience with Sister Dale, and my daughter flew out and she sang that that song to the workers. And that also made me think, wait a minute, maybe this could help some people.
Right.
Maybe it's not about me,
No.
all about me.
No.
Yeah. And then when I got home, you called me and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, would you want to do this thing?" So that's kind of how we got to
Where we are
where
today.
we are. And
You
I probably
know,
took too much time telling the story, but
no,
it's a long story.
it's been perfect because I've watched this progression from having this experience and recognizing that it was sacred, but also unsure about how people were going to accept it and react to it. And I love that the Lord didn't stop teaching you through the years about the power of the experience, and that unbeknownst to you, someone that it had been shared to was really drawn to this work and drawn into the church and stayed into the church because of your
Yeah.
experience and your
And did so
testimony.
much temple work and families because of that experience.
Exactly.
And you wonder what, for me, if you have a sacred experience, for the most part, I try to kind of keep it to myself because
Yeah.
I don't know what you're supposed to share and what you're not supposed to share. You know what I mean? What's right
Yeah.
to share
Yeah.
and what's not right to, I don't know. But as I progressed, I feel, and then plus, but the bad part of me, I guess, says I don't want to share it because then people think I'm weird or something. And I don't want to do that either. You know what I mean? And so
I I totally.
you're balancing that too. You know what I mean?
Oh, I
So,
know. I'm
so,
balancing that on a whole like
so that's, put me in a
bigger
rubber room or
scale than
something.
I
Anyway, yeah.
than I ever thought. But what I love about that is the Lord is never finished with teaching you from these experiences, and I think that when it's time to share. I have some things that I've had experience with that I haven't been told to share yet, and so I keep those, and they still stay sacred as you share them, especially when the Lord says you need to share them. And how the Lord not only like said, okay, you had this experience 20, 30 years ago or whatever, right? Then it comes back around to you 30 years later from a complete stranger, um, that God says, this isn't, like you said, this isn't about you. This
Yeah.
is about testimony of the power of the gathering and of his love for his children on the other side of the veil, and the lengths that he will go to help all of us, including testifying to others about this gathering and about the the reality of revelatory experiences through the thinning of the veil. And I just
I think there's also timing
100%.
involved in this as I think
Yep.
about it.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's interesting. There must be some master plan of a chessboard with five different levels because
Yeah, it's
it's
funny.
a 20-year span from one thing to
Right.
the other, but it came together and I just think, wow, who planned this out? This is amazing.
And that's the beautiful, beautiful part of it, is that there is a master planner who knows all from the beginning to the end, and he weaves this beautiful tapestry of people coming in out of your life. Because, like, I never would have had or known about this experience, and it's affected my life as well, had I not been in that YSA situation. And you weren't even supposed to be in the YSA situation. You were supposed to be on a mission,
To
right?
Palmyra. Yeah, to
In
Palmyra.
Palmyra.
Yeah.
And,
Because of
you know,
COVID, it got canceled. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so you got put into this bishopric, and we just crossed paths just briefly. If you think about it, the amount of time that our paths crossed, it was it was brief, but it was long enough for us to be able to, by the Spirit, be able to know that the testifying of my experiences to you and your experiences to me then can be multiplied. And here we sit.
Yep.
People are watching this on a global basis. So I guess now your band-aid is torn off. you you've been able to have these experiences. So, what has been the most powerful lesson, though, that you've learned from this experience? And I guess we have to say too, you haven't necessarily found who this ancestor was, right? That was singing to
I
you.
might have. I
You
don't
might have, you're
know.
not sure.
It could be one of the many that I've found. I just
Yeah.
haven't got anything that says, okay, you found me kind of a thing.
Right, right, right. So you
So I just keep
continue.
looking and it's
Yep.
interesting, the search part. I'm a decent researcher. After 20 years, you get pretty
Yeah.
good at it. And with all the new tools, even
Right.
the new tools that are there, even DNA, I mean, I've tried everything
Yes.
to try to, and that has actually opens a lot of doors to find additional people.
Right.
And so, but I guess what I've learned, what I came to understand is if you summarize it, I know as much as I know anything that I have a ancestor of mine who didn't have an opportunity for the gospel in her life,
Yeah.
in the spirit world, was taught the gospel, accepted the gospel, and now wants the ordinances of the temple performed in her behalf. And at some level, I don't know what it is, she is aware of me
Yeah.
and then I can help her. Now, I don't think she just sits there all day long and watches me, but I think at some level, because I don't know what they do
You
up
don't
there
think
in the
she's
spirit
up there
world.
eating
No,
popcorn,
no,
just
I don't
watching
know
the
what they do.
drama in
I'm
your
not
life?
sure. Don't know what they're doing, but I think that she in some level is aware of me, and then I can help do this.
100%.
And I don't know how
Yeah.
that works,
Yeah.
but and I think I have other relatives that are in the same boat, and I think if that's the way it is for me, it's the way it is for everybody that's a member of the church. We
Right.
all have ancestors that have been taught the gospel and now they want to be baptized members of the Church of Jesus Christ. They want to be confirmed members and receive the gift of the Holy Ghost. They want to be endowed with power. They want to be sealed as families. They want that. And how
Yeah.
frustrating it must be to be in the spirit world, accept the gospel, and have to have one of their kindred dead do that ordinance for them. I
Yeah.
just can't even imagine that. And that's why I think the
Yeah.
words that really come to me are I'm waiting, watching, and praying that you'll do this for me. And I believe that to be 100% true.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think because really, what else can they do? What
I
else
think
can
they
they
have
do?
some, like the song, some level of influence.
Well,
I
oh,
know
one 100%. Yeah.
when I've done a lot of research, I've had some things happen
Right.
that like, oh my gosh, I just had some help kind of a thing.
Right.
That's another thing. But so I think they have some influence, but I think it's pretty limited.
Yes. Well, and the hard part is that they're not here physically with us, so they can't tell us. So the only way that they can um get a hold of us is through the spirit, and the spirit works through feelings and thoughts. And if you're not in tune to the spirit, then it's almost near impossible for them to get a hold of you, right? Or to
Yeah,
have
well,
influence.
I don't know
So they
how in
pray.
tune I am. And I
Well,
think that
obviously,
this,
I think the part that mattered the most is that
yeah,
you were doing the work.
I was for a couple of years. I was
Yes,
very involved, did the temple work.
right.
And I know that this, we'd say the spirit makes it happen. I know the Savior is the one that makes the spirit connection happen.
Correct.
It's through him
Correct.
that makes this happen. And
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that.
Well, and the Savior is all about finding the lost sheep. And, those on the other side of the veil are lost in a different way than maybe someone here on this side of the veil. And it is through these spiritual gifts that were brought forth by the Savior to help him in his work, because it's going to take those efforts. And I am so grateful that you decided and were willing, and I didn't have to twist your arm too bad
A little bit. You're
to,
persistent.
yeah, well, with an experience like yours, it's just one of those, I know that it's going to help a ton of people. And graciously, you have allowed, at the end of this podcast, I'm going to post the song that was sung. It's by your daughter, right?
Yeah, when we did that fireside, so the recording's not great. It's just from I sh- I should have a re-record it, but I haven't. It's
Yeah.
just from an iPhone recording her singing that song. The
Okay.
the people I work with in Nauvoo, all those temple workers, they asked if they could have a copy of the music and could have a copy of the music singing. So
Yeah.
we just put that on a ancestorsplea.com, and we just, and all it's on there is the sheet music and the just a 5-minute recording of my daughter singing it.
So if people go to ancestorsplea.com,
.com. So I think it's one word. It's just you'll find a little. You have to download it. I think it's just the music,
okay.
the sheet music, whatever.
Yeah. So you can
And
download the sheet music.
and
So
there's a thing you push, and that's her singing it.
okay. So we'll play it at the end, but you can also go to ancestorsplea.com and listen to it there and download the sheet music
Yeah, if you want it, you can have
if
it.
you want it, you can have it. And
Yep.
all you temple and family history consultants out there, if you want to do a sacrament meeting that is about family history, this song just it
So I don't know because
captures
it's
well,
not like official church music, so I don't know in a sacrament meeting. I'm not sure how that works.
well, I guess
Maybe
that's for them
maybe a
to
fifth
talk
Sunday. Yeah,
with their
yeah,
bishop,
yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah.
Or a fireside
Or
or
fireside.
whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I think it just captures what I love about it is it captures the experience of our ancestors on the other side of the veil and their plight, and their desires for us to um, maybe not focus so much on what we think is important in our life and really turn to the Savior and to like be willing to do his work, be willing to sacrifice, be willing to go to the temple. And I would definitely say for those people listening, if you haven't had You Think a Thinning of the Veil experience, this one it is extraordinary on so many levels. But there are those thinning of the veil experiences happening all the time. And if you don't feel like you're having them, again, ask for eyes to see and ears to hear how the Lord is really, because for you, it didn't start out that way. You had pre-revelatory experiences, right? Pre-thinning of the veil experiences through help with research and those Elijah type feelings with your mom. You were having those consistently, and they were kind of maybe building on one another.
Yes.
So that when you had this experience, you didn't just excuse it away. I mean, maybe tempted to a little bit in the beginning, but you didn't, and you wrote it down, which is so crucial, right? Because had you not written it down, you probably wouldn't have been able to remember.
Yeah, I think some of the words I've had to go back several times. Was it this or this? You know, over
Yeah.
time you kind of don't get
Well,
all,
it's an
you start to
impetus.
lose it a little bit. So
Yes. And when you're writing, that's it. It seems like when you're writing, you receive more. It's in the act of writing that more of it comes until again you knew that it was done.
yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing this experience, and I appreciate that I recognize that it's a difficult thing to do, and thank you for doing hard things, and I think it's going to help a lot of people in their life. And I wish I could just get into your suitcase and go with you to London.
Well, I thank you. I think this has been good for me. I feel
Yeah,
like some sense of relief
good.
that I can share it and I don't have to hide it anymore. I feel good about that. So thank you
Good.
for that.
You're welcome. And I
Come
feel
to London when you come to London, visit
okay.
us next year.
Hey, I will. You don't have to tell me twice.
Okay.
I'm grateful for your testimony too, and I'm grateful for Jill and her encouragement in because she's always been in that background,
Always has.
encouraging you to share it, right? And
And she was the one in the temple
part of
that
it.
met with Sister Dill, and
Yeah,
it's just
it's
she's
just
been
so
interwoven.
cool.
It's just cool. Yeah.
Oh, the Lord is just awesome in helping us with this gathering and in bearing testimony of this gathering. And I pray, brothers and sisters, that as you have listened to this podcast with Rob and as you've heard his experience, that you can be prompted to start asking who needs help on the other side of the veil, and then watch and wait for those experiences to come. And make sure that you're recording them. And again, if you're having these experiences, reach out to me at Tia at thinningoftheveil.com, and or if you know my cell phone number, you can just text it to me. It's a little bit easier. In fact, I had a friend of mine just reach out and had a really cool experience last night, and I'll be sharing that in future podcasts. So thank you, Mr. Rob. And we are just so grateful that you joined us and wish you all the best and more revelatory experiences in the London Temple. So
Thank you.
thank you, my friend. And stay tuned, friends, for after. I will post the song and you can give a listen, and make sure you go to ancestorsplee.com, and then you can have all the access that you want to it as well. So thank you. And we'll talk to you soon. I'm sure we'll see you before you go. So thank you.
Thank you.
Rob.
All right. Thanks so much.
See you later, my friends.
All right, we'll see you.
Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
As I promised, my friends, I am going to post the song. I hope you have a very spirit-filled, revelatory-filled week. And if this story doesn't encourage you to ask for a thinning of the veil experiences, I don't know what more can be done about that. But hopefully you've enjoyed it. And again, we say thanks to Rob and his wife, Jill, for allowing us to be a part of their journey. And we will see you next week, my friends. Bye.
I tried to live a good life. I tried to do what's right. I taught my children values to stand for truth and light. I searched the world for all my life and waited patiently to find the gospel blessings meant to be. I witnessed the restoration, the Father and the Son. I watched dear brother Joseph kneel down upon the ground. The gospel spread to all the world in its entirety. Those blessings sent to others, but not me. So here I wait and watch and pray. My temple work will be done someday. It's up to you, my child, so please recall. Your family chain extends beyond these walls. I wait, I wait, I wait. I know that you are busy. You've got so much to do. It's tough to raise a family. I've tried it just like you. So much to do, so many cares. I pray that you will see. You must never forget your eternal family. I've watched your mortal sojourn. I've observed you from above. I saw you grasp the gospel, have blessings which you love. Blessings from on high, I know you have received. Those blessings I know were also meant for me. So here I wait and watch and pray. My temple work will be done someday. It's up to you, my child, so please recall. Your family chain extends beyond these walls. Find me, find me, find me. I pray that you'll do research and find my birth and death. They're recorded in life's records. You just have to hunt a bit. My death, my birth, my marriage date are all right there, you'll see. Submit my work and seal eternity. I've now been taught the gospel. I know that it is true. I taught my children and my friends, and now we wait for you. You're just
Hello, friends. I'm coming to you at the end of this podcast because since we have filmed this podcast, Rob called me and let me know there's some things happening with the song that are super duper cool and quite miraculous, if I might say so myself. There is an awesome, talented musician called Becca Sorensen who, through a series of, non-coincidences, came across Rob and this song and they've collaborated and are making it even more awesome than it already is. So stay tuned for that coming in the next, I don't know, weeks. And you will be one of the first people to hear about that song when it comes out and it's updated version. I've heard there's some cool things. I've actually heard a couple demos and I'm super duper excited about it. Let's just say I cried my eyes out when I was listening to it. I'm grateful to be a part of this miracle. I've included a little short clip from Becca Sorensen at the end of this podcast right after this, so you can kind of get a sneak peek of what's going on. So be sure to keep checking back in. Go check Becca Sorensen out, and her Instagram handle is in the description of this video. And because she's not only, this isn't her first project, she has done this several times around, and she is super talented, and I believe super inspired, because what she did with this song was truly remarkable. So check back, my friends. Go check out her amazing musical talents. And hopefully you way enjoyed this podcast, because I know I did. So we'll talk to you later. Bye.
What if a loved one really could send a message from beyond the veil? Or even a song?